Hey Nate, how you doing?
Hi Tammy, how's it going?
Good. Hey everyone out there. This is the Off-Road Insight. I feel like one of those late night radio hosts. This is the Off-Road Insiders podcast. Hey, how are you? How was your trip? I don't know why I did that.
You just now you threw me off.
We're taking callers on lines 1 and 5. Do you have a question for Nate?
Trip was pretty good, but we're going to spend most of the episode
Yes.
talking about that. So,
Okay, so
we'll
can
probably
we talk about my stuff?
Absolutely.
Guess what
Tammy,
I heard.
We can
today.
always talk about your stuff. I mean,
Yes.
you are a co-host of this show.
Yes.
And
So I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So the engine is in. New timing belts, a bunch of stuff. But Daniel, the tech, he sent me a link to. Did we talk about this last week? The 3M or the couple weeks about the purple tape.
I can't remember if we talked about it or if I saw it on your Instagram.
Okay. Well,
you were sharing pictures and stuff.
Yeah. Sorry if I'm repeating myself. But anyway, we found 3M electrical tape, which is just as good as the black tape. But it's called Violet. It looks more like the Barney pink. So we redid all my wiring for the engine, not everything in the Jeep. But this is something that I think everybody should be aware of when you're in there, like changing stuff around or whatever. That tape from the factory gets brittle over time, and it starts coming. And the loom, the wire loom, it was just there was like little bits all over my old engine.
Yeah, that stuff just cracks off.
Yeah.
When I did the valve cover and stuff on the LJ, it was terrible. The number of times where I'm like, did I just break a wire? I hope I didn't break a wire.
Yeah. So we wrapped all the wires that go into the engine, the violet purple. You can see some of them. So the engine is in, and all the everything's hooked up. And when an engine's been sitting like that, Daniel pulled the fuel pump fuse because he didn't want fuel pumping into the engine until we got everything lubricated.
Yeah.
So he turned it 3 times and probably counted to 20. And then he put the fuse back in, and then he started it up, and it worked.
It started.
Yeah.
Awesome.
However, we're having a little, I don't think it's a big issue, but it's the radiator. It's not burping correctly.
Okay.
So he hooked a bunch of stuff up. The shop was really noisy. So then I had to leave. He's going to put some miles on it tomorrow. We have to put my gas tank or my engine skid and the transfer case skid back on. But since they were off, I put some rust inhibitor on the scrapes and scratches, and I respray painted them. But guess what color they are?
They must be purple.
Yes. So I had some engine purple spray paint because we were going to do the valve covers. We spray paint them and stuff. And then I decided, nah, let's not do that. Yeah. And so I used that spray paint to do the skids.
Once it's installed and I assume you put the cover back over top of the engine, you don't really see the valve covers anymore. So what's the point of painting them, right?
Yeah. And then it was where the timing chains are. Yeah, you're not going to really see any of that
timing
stuff.
Cover. Yeah, that's
timing cover. Yeah.
I don't know where that is on the 3.6. I assume it's on the front of the engine like it is on most engines.
Yeah. But everything's all covered up. You don't really see.
Yeah, exactly. It gets behind the water pump, and and to see it's like engine, electric fan, radiator, and there's like 2 inches in between, right? Like you're not going to see it.
And then
you'll know it's there though, Tammy.
Right. So anyway, I'm like, he has to charge the air conditioner. He's going to put some miles on it. Just make sure everything's going right. And I forget what else. And then the skids. And then hopefully tomorrow I'll be back in my Jeep.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. The check engine light did come on, but that's because the fuel pump fuse was out at first. and then it came on again because of the electric fan, or the fan wasn't
Okay.
running, and he fiddled and did whatever magic he does, and it's fine.
Well,
So
both of those are not like, oh my god, the engine's going to explode. So that's a good start.
into me and they're like, "Oh yeah, everything's, your misfire 6 is gone, but the check engine light is on. You've got misfire 1, 3, and 5." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. Just messing with you, right?
Yeah, they love to mess with me. So yeah, I'm pretty excited that that's done. Now I just got to pay the bill.
I
Um,
I just think it's awesome that you were able to be right there and see so much of
watch.
that happen,
Yes.
right? Like I've been around vehicles and home, projects like this for over 2 decades, and I've never been through an engine swap. I've never done one. I've never seen one done. Like I know people that have done them, but I've never
Mhm.
actually been there for one, and it must be pretty cool, right? Like, so it's a
Yeah.
thing I'd love to do someday. I pulled an engine out of a YJ that I parted out. I sold the engine, but I didn't like put a different one in and get it adapted and working and all that stuff. It seems like it'd be a fun process, especially for something. I mean, you depend on your Jeep every day, right? I wouldn't want to do it in something that I depend on every day because I'm just me. I'm not a licensed
Right.
mechanic, right?
It was cool because I got to understand where the heads are, how they just measure the heads and decide if they're good. I got to see just everything in there, the timing chains, how all that works. So when people talk about the water cooler, I'm like, oh, I know where that is. I
Right,
mean,
right.
on the 3.6 anyway. I'm like, oh, I didn't know you hooked up the air conditioner thingy there, right on the engine. The really frustrating part of the whole thing for me was because we had to ship that back as a core.
Mhm.
My old engine.
Yeah.
We shipped that back as a core. Um, we did not get to go in and look at um,
The
the,
cylinder and
the
everything.
the cylinder. Thank you. I couldn't think of it. Where they're pretty sure it's all tore up. I mean, we could have, but that would have been another because then they would have had to put it all back together
Yeah,
again
it's just
because there
work
was
you didn't have to do, right?
right. It was a
Just
misfire 6.
just for curiosity, right? Like, is there really a
Yeah,
plan? It'd be different if you were sending it to the scrap yard and they didn't care
right. We could
what
have taken
condition
it
it came
apart and
in.
we didn't need
Yeah,
to put it back together. But yeah, actually, are they called the cam lobes?
that
I
sounds
think
right.
that, yeah. So Daniel, the technician working on it, he just from listening to my engine and the code, he was expecting them to be like smushed down and just like, but the cams were totally fine. So it's
Hmm.
down in the cylinder 6. So and you could really, everybody who got into my Jeep like knew something was up because you hear that tick 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 tick, and the Jeep's like,
Yeah,
shaking,
yeah,
and you could
yeah. It'll feel like it's rough because it's missing.
yeah,
Because where there should be a detonation, there's nothing. Yeah,
correct. So we're all good to go, I hope, and in gosh 2 weeks I'll be heading to South Dakota um, for an off-road event. I'm going to be working the event. I might be able to get to take my Jeep on the trails, but I'm mostly going to be there to get video with other Jeepers
yeah.
for TNT.
How
So,
many miles did you have on that engine before you took
oh,
it out?
it's about 123.
Hmm,
So
okay.
in 2019, right before I went on that 1 month long trip, and then right after that I headed out to Colorado and I did all my stuff. I had 56,000 miles on it. So
Wow.
since I left Maryland, I've put on about 70 some
Well,
thousand miles.
you drove it across the country a couple times in that
Hmm.
in
Yes.
that period. That's like 3,000 miles a shot.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, our JKU has like 140 on it. And I
Oh,
mean, so far so
wow.
good,
Knock
right?
on wood. Yeah.
Like
What year
I
is
don't
it?
want to jinx it. It's a 2014.
Oh, okay. It's,
So it did have a lifter tick for like, I don't know, 8 months until I finally got a chance to get in there and replace that one lifter. I should have done, I think I said this last time, I should have done all
hmm
of them while I was in there, but I did the one that was ticking. So I'm just waiting for another one to go. But other than that, I mean,
Yeah.
It's been pretty solid. No weird transmission problems, no excessive engine problems. Our biggest issue we've had is that we think maybe either the heater core or maybe the radiator, something has a very slow leak in it that we have to keep replacing fluid.
Probably the radiator
Well,
that's inherent of those years, I hear. Well, mine I had to replace.
I replaced the radiator once, and that was only like 3 years ago, maybe 4.
Oh.
So unless the radiator I got also had a hole in it, it seems like that isn't the problem.
Huh.
But the heater core, I hear, is a nightmare to replace. So I'm not looking forward to that being the problem.
Well, when you said about, and I see this all the time at the shop, while we're in here, we really should replace this, this, and this. And people look at it's going to be an extra, $100 to $1,000, depending what it is. And people look at you like, no, you don't understand. Because if we replace what X, and then like 2 months down the road, we have to replace Y. Well, we have to tear it all apart again, and we're going to be charging you that same labor.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, one of those lifters went. The others have all the same mileage on them, right? Mm-hmm. So was it just one that was faulty?
Right.
Or is there another one that's just about to go too? Right. I should have just done them all while I was in there. But it's a bigger job when you do them all, because I was able to just kind of loosen things up and get that one out and then replace it. Right. If you do them all, I think you have to take the whole rail off that holds them in place. And that I was worried about, just because I've never been that deep into an engine before. Like I said, I've never done a swap. I've never rebuilt an engine. Right. These are just things that are relatively new to me. And it's my wife's vehicle. I didn't want to mess it up to the point where
and
if I mess up mine, I can only blame myself. I mess up hers, then it's like, why didn't you just take it to the shop?
And sometimes, I mean, I've learned that lesson not to have a shade tree mechanic work on it, because when we got in there was lots of things that like I had to get a new starter because he messed Colorado.
There's some jobs I won't take on.
Right.
And we may actually talk about one in the main topic, but there's some jobs where it's like, I could probably do this by watching some videos and learning what's going on, or I can have confidence in it and just pay some money and have someone that really knows what they're doing fix it.
So while we were in there, if you've been following my social media, you would have seen the blue liquid leak. That is the JKU washer reservoir.
Oh, okay, right.
So they come like in this whole assembly, and you have to, I think, what are the parts that are attached to it? The TIPM's in there. Off the top of my head, you guys can go to my social media and look through my reels. But to replace your leaking washer reservoir, which apparently the washer reservoir is one type of plastic, and then the assembly is another type. And when those heat and expand, because they're different, they crack and you start leaking. And to replace that, it's cost about $211 to get the assembly unit to replace your reservoir. That's not counting putting it in, and it is a pain in the butt. It was easy for us because my engine was already out.
Yeah.
Because the engine gets in the way of you trying to take it out. So anyway, I got a brand new washer reservoir. Let's see how long this lasts. So
I tell you what, when I did, so the lifter I replaced was on the passenger side, right? Because the V6 engine, there's two sets of there's two valve covers, right? You had to get under the valve cover, and right under the valve cover is this rail, and then under that is these little rocker lifter guys. And on paper, it sounds simple. Oh, valve cover off, they're right there. Do it. Yeah, getting to the valve cover.
Right.
Took me, I was working on it a couple hours a night after work, right? But it took me like 3 evenings to get all this shit out of the way.
Yep.
And I didn't even take everything that I could have taken out. I could have gone further to make the job even easier. I got far enough, then I got the thing out of there, got the valve cover out, and then I did the lifter. but there were a few pieces I could have continued to take out that would have made getting the valve cover out easier, because getting the valve cover out was a severe pain in the butt because it just didn't have quite enough clearance, because I forgot what was in the way. There was something in there that if I would have gone a little further, I could have gotten out of the way, but I was just sick of disassembling. I wanted to get the job done.
And typically this would have been a 2-day thing, but they were working on my Jeep in between customers' vehicles because you still have to make money.
Yeah.
And so Daniel would like go back to my Jeep and he's like, okay, where were we? Where does this go? And I mean, it wasn't that bad, but he did say it's not, because you have to stop and like remember and make sure you did X, Y, and Z. So
yeah, it's definitely not the thing you want to interrupt if you don't have to. But
no, true.
You know, if he's good, and he seemed like he was good from the videos that you were showing, if he's good, he can figure it out. It just slows the process down, right? It's like you're in the middle of baking a cake and the phone rings and you go talk to someone for 20 minutes and then you come back and you're like, how much flour did I put in?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Same deal, except with grease and precise machinery that needs to work just the right way.
Right. It's funny because we do a lot of reels for TNT, Daniel, and Nick as well. And there are so many armchair quarterbacks out there.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, reels are like maybe 20 seconds to 30 seconds, whatever. So you're just getting a little bit there like, well, you should have blah, blah, blah. You're like, oh, people, this is not a tutorial on how to. It's just a little. So I've learned like I got to ignore comments because
you should have done this. It's like, well, yeah, we did do that. It just wasn't on camera.
Exactly.
Because nobody wants to watch me do that.
Right. But the life of the internet now. It's crazy.
It's always been like that, though. It's just that now more and more people get to experience it. I've been on the internet longer than most. Well, I shouldn't say most. Longer than most of the people that are on today, I suppose.
Yeah. All those
it's always been like that.
Yeah.
It's always been somebody knows more than you, and they're going to point out what they think is wrong. Whether you've recorded a video of you doing a thing or you wrote up a long document about it, someone is going to nitpick you. It's just like, you know, when everybody gets together for Thanksgiving dinner and your Uncle Bob comes into the renovations you just did and said, well, you should have done that this way. Exact same thing, except the anonymity of the internet makes it so much easier.
Yeah. I just got to learn to tune them out.
Yeah.
Tune them out.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, I talked a little too long. Sorry.
No, it's cool. It's great to hear that your engine is running again. We're all going to cross our fingers and make sure that no unexpected surprises come your way, and that you're back on the trails. So that's awesome. It's awesome. So yeah, I had a little bit of a trip, just a little bit of Not really much else has gone on with me since our last show, but this was kind of like the big thing. We went out to the Bantam Jeep Heritage Festival, which is out near Butler, Pennsylvania. It's like a 4-hour trip for us, 4.5-hour drive out. And I towed the LJ out there.
And Butler's up in the northwest part of Pennsylvania, right?
It's really close to Pittsburgh. If you're familiar with where Pittsburgh is, it's probably the closest thing that you're going to identify. But yeah, it's to the western side of PA. I guess, you'd call it northwestern. And I'm in northeastern, so right, it's just basically the other side of the state from me. But this is really one of the reasons we have a tow rig and a trailer, so that I can take the Jeep on trips like this and not have to worry about it getting me back home 4.5 hours, along with the kids and our luggage. And, you know, because how are you going to bring all that in the back of a Wrangler, right?
Mm-hmm.
We took my wife's JKU out 2 years ago, and that worked out okay, but we still had to pack light because, you know, the trunk area of a JKU. It's bigger, but it's not big.
It's a tight fit.
Yeah, that with 2 kids. And that was also when we noticed the lifter tick, by the way. So that was
there you go.
Just coincidental, I suppose. So but yeah, the festival is basically Butler, PA is where the Bantam Car Company was based. And the Bantam Car Company is the automotive manufacturer responsible for the first designs of what became the World War II quote unquote Jeep. the Willis or whatever that went into the field. They designed it. There were a bunch of concerns about whether Bantam Car Company could actually manufacture the thing to the right levels. So that's how Willis Overland and Ford and a couple other manufacturers, if I remember correctly, got into the mix. And that's how we ended up with the Willis Jeep that we know today, right? They ended up with, for whatever reason, after the war, they're the ones that continued it on. I don't know what happened to the Bantam Car Company. I should really look into that, right? I'm sure there was something there. I could have asked somebody or read something, but every year I go there, I feel like I learn one more thing, and there's like a million things that I can still learn because they have they've got like a little museum. It's hosted at a fairground or a campground with a big area, a big field area. And they have like a little garage in the back where they have all these classic Jeeps, including a couple of that first run of the Bantam. Now I'm forgetting they had a model number. The BRC, was it?
BRC 40.
Yeah. They have a couple of those. Right. They have a couple of those, and I sent you a picture of them. I didn't load any of them into StreamYard that I can share them with everybody, but maybe I'll put them up on swbcarler.com or our own site so that people can see them. But basically, they have a couple of those, and then they have a whole bunch of other, like, they have some FCs, the forward cab vehicles that were used for troop transports and farm vehicles and milk trucks and whatever. They have a couple of old CJs. They have a couple of old Willis, and a lot of these are personally owned vehicles that they bring them out for the event, and then they put them in this museum, and then they go back home with the owners, right? So, but it's pretty cool. You can learn all kinds of stuff about the history. The original plant, I think, is now gone, but it was in downtown Butler. And when the Jeepcast guys were out there 3 years ago, they actually got a brick from the factory. They actually got they got permission from the guy who owns the land, and they got a brick from the old factory. So that was pretty cool. I'm pretty sure now it's gone. I think it's torn down now, but I'm not 100% certain about that.
So just real quick, so Bantam between 40 and 43, they built 2,675 Jeeps.
There you go.
And they were actually taken over because then they started making trailers for the military. And then they were taken over in 1956 by American Rolling Mills. So, yeah. They're not around anymore. So,
sorry, I'm responding to Nikki G in chat. So, I don't want to be too distracted.
No, that's all right. That so yeah, more than half of that production that they did went to the British Army and some to the Soviet Union. So that's kind of interesting. So all the original bodies that the factory made for the Jeep, the original Jeep bodies for the original design were made by American Bantam. And then Ford and Willis came and got involved.
It's pretty neat. The first models have this like welded bar stock grill.
Right? Yes.
And they say that's how you can identify like the first prototypes and the first production ones, because they decided there was too much manpower involved in welding up that bar stock grill. So that's how you ended up with the stamped slotted grill that we still know today, right? So that's kind of how those came to be, which is kind of a neat little tidbit.
Yeah. And it was actually 13 slots at one time when they were doing the welds.
Yep. Oh yeah, with the bar stock, it had like a billion slots. I didn't count them, but you're right. It was probably about 13. That fits from what I'm thinking in my head. Yeah, because it was just like 1/4-inch bar stock,
right,
in between each one, and it was mainly there to protect the radiator. It was completely for utility, not for style at all.
Right. And now the Jeep grill, is iconic.
Now people get angry if you change it. I might be one of those people.
And you get those angry eyes.
The freaking angry grills.
Yeah, and the eyelashes.
Yep. The eyelashes.
There was a girl at Topless the topless event here in Cheyenne.
You shared a picture, I think.
Yeah, the big
with the eyelashes.
I'm like, oh, good Lord.
It's kind of crazy. You know what though?
To each his own.
To each their own. And Bantam, there's a car show there as well, or a Jeep show. And some of the builds you see are just like, you look at them and you're like, nobody.
Oops. I didn't mean to put that up.
That's
Sorry.
okay. That's the comment I was responding to.
Yeah.
Nikki G said he hates when people offer advice that you didn't ask for, and then he tells me that I should look more directly into the camera.
Oh,
because
I missed that part.
I always, yeah. Anyway, you can tell a lot of them, they're just for show. And that's fine, right? People build show cars, show Jeeps, show trucks, whatever. I get it. Anyway, I guess we'll just kind of run through
go
it.
Around, tell us about your vacation.
Yeah.
Trip report by Nate.
Yep. So I basically took the Friday before off because the show is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. It doesn't really kick off until the evening on Friday. So we usually head out Friday. We leave there in the morning. We leave in the morning, get out there by afternoon. This year we didn't leave until almost lunchtime because we were just having trouble getting moving. Kids and all. One of them lost their phone, and we're like, "You're not going if you don't have your phone," because the thought was if we got separated, if they have their phone on them, at least we can get a hold of them. We could even find where they are based on the location of the phone. So it was like, this is the only reason you have the phone, as far as we're concerned. If you can't find it and bring it along, then you're staying home.
And you have no reason to have a phone if you lose it.
Exactly. Well, kids, they are.
Right. I should talk.
Man, I could go on and on. Like old man yells at next generation of children.
Yeah. Get
in my day.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that delayed us a little bit. And we got out there. It was probably after 5 by the time we got. We parked the trailer at the fairgrounds, and then we used the tow rig to get around town and stuff because I don't want to be driving the LJ around on the streets because the hotels are all a short highway drive away from the fairgrounds, unless you camp there. I could camp there, and we've talked about maybe doing that next year, but we haven't done that yet. But we got there like 5:30 or so. Got the Jeep unloaded, got the trailer unhooked, and then the thing that happens Friday that we did want to try to get to is a thing called the Butler Invasion. So Butler is like the little town that is near the grounds, which is where the factory used to be. And they have basically a car show where they close down the town of Butler and they just line the streets with Jeeps.
Oh, so cool.
And it's really cool. We went to it last year, but the traffic getting into town, as you might imagine, because it's like a small town and there's probably 1,000 Jeeps or more that are coming into park. It just takes forever to get everybody in and get them parked because everybody, they have to figure out where they're going to put them. And they, whatever, one by one have to get them into the town. So we weren't looking forward to the traffic jam, even though this year they had done something new where they had staging areas where everybody went to the staging area and then they were releasing vehicles into the town, I think in waves, so that it was a little easier to get things lined up. But by the time we got there, and we were worried about the traffic jam, and the LJ is technically not inspected. So I didn't know how strict they were going to be about me driving it on the road to get to Butler. They might turn a blind eye, or they might be like, the cops are just looking for people. I don't know. So we decided not to go to the invasion this year, which I don't know. I kind of regret because it was fun last year, but I kind of don't regret because it meant we had that much more time to find the hotel, get checked in, relax a little bit, all that stuff.
I can't imagine trying to eat with all those people there. The restaurants must have been packed.
So what they usually do, or what they did last year anyway, was down at the invasion, they have a whole bunch of street trucks that are out there that you can get food from, like food trucks, which worked out pretty well. It's just like a fair, right?
Right.
Like a street fair. All of the areas that we went to eat, there weren't huge lines or anything.
Oh, that's good.
And when you're at the fairgrounds, same deal. They have food trucks everywhere like you'd expect at a fair. those had some lines because all the people were at the same place. And, everybody wants to get lunch around the same time, that kind of thing. But even that wasn't terrible. So, yeah, we didn't really have any issue with that. But, so we got... Go ahead.
Butler has 13,552 people as of 2020.
Yeah, so not really a big town.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so we got to the hotel. The kids were ecstatic because it turned out that our hotel room was directly across the hallway from the pool, which was the one thing that they were super interested in. But I ran into a guy from Skyjacker in the lobby of the hotel, which is one of the cool things about this event. Just like anywhere you go, you'll run into not just other Jeep people, but vendors you might want to chat with.
Right.
So I had a little bit of a conversation with him. I didn't go all on about our podcast or my YouTube channel or whatever. But I did say 20 something years ago, the first Jeep I ever owned had a Skyjacker lift on it.
There you go.
So that was a little bit of a talking point. And he invited me to stop by their booth at the show, but we never got around to it. They had a huge trailer set up. So I kind of wish we had gotten to see them, but it just didn't work out that way. But that was kind of fun to chat with him.
Did you get lost in your notes?
Yeah, I'm just was there anything else I wanted to talk about? I don't think so. I think I covered everything here. Oh, that was the other thing I want to talk about. Folks who tow, anyone listening who tows, I want to know how you handle this particular situation. When you're towing and you have a GPS on for directions, it doesn't know that you're towing. It doesn't know that you're bigger than a standard car, right? So it'll send you places that it would send a normal car. So if you're like, I want to go to a McDonald's, it'll send you to a McDonald's with no real thought for, can you fit a trailer in the parking lot of that McDonald's, right? And the trailer I tow the LJ on is relatively small when you compare it to people who tow RVs, for example, right? So I picked up a Garmin RV GPS. The RV 795, I think is what the model is. It's what I put in the notes here. And I wanted to try that out. And it worked out pretty well. It seemed, maybe we were just lucky, but it seemed like it picked out when it was time to eat lunch, for example, we just it had a thing where you could pick an exit and it would show you what was on, what amenities were there. And then we picked a Denny's, for example. And it happened to be a Denny's that was at a Flying J, which is I don't know if those are national
truck stop. Yeah,
it's basically a truck stop. So there was plenty of room to pull in and park and whatever. Was that just luck because we were also on the interstate and a lot of, establishments on the interstate are set up that way? I don't know. But on the way home, we had to eat too. And it sent us to a much smaller diner that did happen to have a dirt pull-off that was perfectly sized for us to pull the trailer into. So again, was that luck? I don't know. But I'm curious what other people who tow do to accommodate for this. Or is it just that they don't worry about it like I do and they just roll with it when they get there? I don't know.
Okay, everybody run across the street.
Yeah. So I'm curious if anybody has a solution to that. That was the only other thing I wanted to touch on the first day. So yeah, that was basically the first day. We spent most of the day driving out. Like I said, unloaded, got settled at the hotel, ate some dinner, and then called it a night. And then the next day, so they've got the event it has the car show, it has vendors, it has on-site trails, and it has a playground, right? And we wanted to get to all of those things. So that morning we got up, did the hotel breakfast thing. My youngest was super disappointed because they had one of those automatic pancake makers and it wasn't working right.
Oh.
Nikki G says, go through the drive-through, then you don't have to worry about parking. Yeah, sure. I'll take my trailer through the McDonald's drive-through. Thanks, Nikki G. So perfect.
Do you have to if someone was thinking, I think I'm going to go to this event next year, do you have to sign up for trail rides and stuff?
You can buy tickets on site, but we have always pre-ordered them. And yes, there's packages you buy. It's I'm just going to be there for the vendor show, or I'm going to be there for just these specific events. And those are all different amounts of money. Or you can buy a package that's the full fairground, which includes the on-site trails and a couple other things. And then there's other add-ons beyond that. One of which is there's a little safari. There's an animal park nearby. that you can actually take your Jeep through a safari.
Oh.
And we had signed up for that, but unfortunately, it used to be you would take your Jeep in, you could take the top off, and you were like full on safari mode going through this little safari, right? And you could like the animals would like lean their heads into your Jeep and all that kind of stuff. And this year, they had to send out a memo after we had all purchased our things that said you must have a top on your vehicle in order to do the safari park. And they gave us all an option to refund it if we didn't want to do it with the top on. And we talked about it. And we're like, it was not quite as cool without the top on. So we took the money back. So we didn't get to do that. But I had some friends who did it, and it looked interesting. So now I'm kind of thinking we should have done it.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? Yeah.
FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. So, but I think it would have been so much cooler to be able to take the top off. And again, with the Jeep not being inspected, like, can I tow it over there? Do they have a place where I could have towed it over and unloaded it? Are they like okay with that? I just decided to take the refund. So anyway, if you go to Bantam, you can do the safari. Just keep those things in mind. You have to have the top on the Jeep, which is super. Come on, live a little.
Yeah.
So what if a llama eats my hat?
Yeah. That's kind of weird, but I guess it's for insurance safety purposes.
I'm sure it's
maybe.
An insurance thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They probably, because in previous years, I'm like, oh wow, they let us go through with the top off. That sounds super risky, but okay, they must know what they're doing. Well, now they don't anymore.
Right.
So, all right. So yeah, the pancake maker was broken, and it was super cool. This is the weirdest thing to geek out on, but it had like you put a bag of pancake mix in the top, and what it would do is it would squirt it onto a conveyor belt, and then it would move the conveyor belt into like a 2-belt system, and both belts are heated. And it cooks both sides of the pancake on the way through, and then spits out a pancake at the other end.
That's kind of neat. I've never
I
seen
thought it was amazing.
Like that. I was thinking it was going to be like the waffle maker machine.
Yeah, right. I call that a pancake printer. That's exactly what it is. It's a 3D printer for pancakes.
There you go.
So anyway, right. So then we went and we did like the vendor stuff. We kind of walked around. They have a whole bunch of, I mean, you've been to open fairs like this. You get a ton of vendors. Some of them are going to be Jeep related. Some of them are just going to be vendors that sell things, right? And the kids and my wife love all of it because they love buying things.
To your dismay.
So we gave everybody a budget. We let the girls manage their own little pile of money for each of them. I gave them each $100 to just like buy what they wanted to buy, right?
Wow, you're a nice dad.
Yeah, but that doesn't go as far as it used to. No, $100 when I was a kid would have bought me like a game system. Now it's like, yeah, that's like a nice lunch.
Right. True.
So yeah, they each got some little things. They had fun. We always get something for my wife's Jeep while we're out there, and I look around for stuff for mine. Although usually the stuff I want is too expensive or too inconvenient to take home. But there was, as you might expect, vendors there selling rubber ducks. Because of course there are.
Of course.
So we bought each of the girls a bag of little tiny rubber ducks, like the little itty bitty ones.
Right.
And then a couple of themed ones because they had like 3 for $8 or whatever. Imagine that, $8 for 3 rubber ducks.
God, it's like, oh, I should have jumped on that bandwagon a long time ago.
Back to how $100 doesn't go so far anymore, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So they each got their little bag of ducks and a couple themed ones. And they were super excited about putting ducks on people's Jeeps, just everywhere they went.
Kids love it.
Like, they wanted to put ducks on vendor Jeeps. And I'm like, well, they might enjoy it. But the person that owns that Jeep, like, who owns that Jeep? It's a company, right? They don't care. I'm like, you'll probably find it more fun if you put it on someone who actually owns a Jeep. And then we went over to the car show area, and they like their eyes lit up, and they just started ducking Jeeps. And sure enough, a couple of them, the owners were sitting right there by the Jeep. They got lollipops from some lady because they put a duck on her Jeep.
Right.
They got a whole bunch of thank yous, and sure enough, it was just so much more rewarding for them to be able to do it that way. But yeah, it was pretty cool, and they had a lot of fun doing that with the ducks. So I didn't.
Some people are so anti-duck.
Yeah, well, there was a little built Willys there that was painted with chameleon paint. You remember what chameleon paint looks like? It's that stuff that like changes color as it goes in
Oh,
different
yeah, yep,
lights.
yep. Mhm.
And it looked like he painted it that way, but it wasn't necessarily a show Jeep because I saw him out on the trails and stuff too with it. It's just like that's the way he painted his Jeep. And my daughter saw that in the parking lot and she loved the paint, so she put a duck on it. He had no ducks on it. There were no ducks around it. And as she's walking up to it, I'm looking around to make sure that like some old gnarly looking guy isn't going to come out and chase her off. And sure
Right.
enough, it was fine. And we saw the guy driving around later, but we didn't see any ducks. So for all I know, he like threw the duck away or he burned it. I don't know, but she got to put it on the hood. So
took it to the shooting range and used it for target practice.
yeah, right. So, but I mean, you can't really come to this event and be that angry about the ducks because it's everywhere. So many people are doing it. It's all over the vendor booths. There's like there was a Jeep in the parking lot with a giant inflatable duck raft on its roof. It's like people are really into it.
And as it's a good marketing ploy. There are more people, especially the newer Jeepers, not necessarily the hardcore old guys, who have been, having Jeeps for 20, 30 years. It's all these new Jeepers and they love the ducks. They love, and then people get mad. You're not supposed to put them in your dash. You're supposed to give them away. And I'm like, there are no rules, people.
There really aren't.
No, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
If you want to put them on your dash, put them on your dash. If you don't want to give them away, don't give them away.
Yep.
If you don't like them, just put them in the garbage and move on.
Yeah. Keep a bag of them and sacrifice them later if you need to.
Yeah. So anyway, keep interrupting you.
It is a really weird trend. No, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk and talk and talk, Tammy. So yeah, we walked around, looked at a couple of vendors. We did some shopping. I came across a local fire company that was giving away a 2024 Wrangler Rubicon Unlimited.
Did you win it?
Well, they haven't drawn yet because this wasn't just for the show. It's just they were there to try to sell some more tickets for it. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it benefits a local fire company. It's a volunteer fire company. Like they probably need the money. I'll buy a ticket. So I bought one. And then we're looking at the Jeep and it has the window sticker on it. And it's nice. It has leather interior. It has probably a Mopar lift on it because it had 35s on it. I don't know. I guess Mopar still does lifts. Whatever. There was something that let it fit 35s. $78,000.
Crazy.
And it's not like a 392 or something. 78 grand.
Unbelievable. When is this bubble gonna burst?
So I said to my wife, I'm like, I hope we win it because it's the only way I'm ever gonna have a $78,000 Jeep.
Right.
There's no way. I don't know. I mean, if you win it, you have to then pay tax on it. I don't know if I could afford that.
Right, exactly.
Like that's gonna be thousands of dollars. So yeah, maybe I'll get a
win. That would be so cool.
If I get a $78,000 Rubicon, you better believe it's going to be in some videos to pay off the taxes.
Yeah.
392 start at over 90 grand. I would believe it. I'd believe it. So yeah, we did that. And whatever. If we don't win, $25 to a local fire company. I don't know how they got the Jeep. I was tempted to ask, like, did someone donate this? Did a car dealer give it to you?
A car dealer probably donated it.
Because they're selling 5,000 tickets at $25 a pop. That doesn't equal 78 grand. Does it? I don't think it does. Math.
I don't have a calculator.
It doesn't sound like it does.
I'm doing it on paper.
Okay.
You can keep talking. This might take me a while.
78K, that's a whole lot of XJs, Nikki G says. I could just get out my calendar. I guarantee it's not 78 grand.
Oh, $25, 5,000 tickets?
Yeah.
$125,000.
Oh, so it is over 78 grand. Okay. Yeah. So look, it's been a long time since I
know.
Did math like that without a calculator. Now people are going to comment about how Nate's math skills are terrible. Look, I have
Who
a
cares?
fourth, now fifth grader that still is going through all of the Common Core math stuff, and
Oh,
the math is like this mushy thing in my brain now because it's like all these things I thought were true aren't anymore.
mm-hmm. That's crazy.
So anyway, so yeah, I guess maybe they did buy it. Maybe they bought it and they're just living on the proceeds. Okay. Anyway, I ran into Terry. You know, Terry Pritchard, I think it is,
That name rings a bell.
with the Jeep Life podcast.
Oh, okay.
He works for Oracle Lighting now. Oracle Lights.
Uh-huh.
He was working for Quadratech, and I don't know exactly what happened there. I feel like he got laid off like a year and a half ago. And he landed at Oracle. So we ended up buying some taillights for the wife's JKU
Uh-huh.
from him because they're nice. They're like flush. They almost like wrap around the side of the like the curve of the tail, the rear of the tub there. They look really nice. There's some videos of that when I installed them up on Instagram if anybody's curious. They are nice and super bright reverse lights, like crazy bright. They make the stock reverse lights look like they don't actually light anything up. Because did you know that reverse lights are supposed to light up what's behind you, not just tell other drivers you're backing up? Well, these do.
I did not know that.
These are crazy. They're light. They're bright. Yeah, I think that's about it for the vendor side. Then we went and did the on-site trails, which I'm going to tell you, if you're coming out to Bantam, they have strict rules about who can do what trails, right? Because they don't know you. They don't know how good you are. They just know what size your tires are, whether you have lockers or not, whether you have the clearance for certain things. So they have a checklist where they rate your Jeep and they tell you what trails you're allowed to do. And my Jeep, because it's only on 33-inch tires and doesn't have any lockers, was rated at a blue. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. I enjoy blues, right? I do blues at AOAA. They're challenging sometimes. It's cool. Their blues are not challenging. They're like hard greens by my by my standard. But we still had fun, and nobody in the Jeep got scared of the trails or anything like that. There were a couple steep hills that we came down that kind of freaked my wife out because she's still kind of weird about those. I'm sure you can understand.
Yeah,
that,
no, I'm. People like, why do you go jeeping if you get afraid? I'm like,
yeah.
Why do people go on roller coasters that scream and yell?
Yeah, because it's fun, and sometimes you want to challenge yourself and see if you can get through it. But
so are these trails like is this like in the mountains, or
there's like a wooded area around the fairgrounds, and they've cut trails into the area there. So you could imagine, right? Like this isn't land that they've chosen specifically for off-roading. It's land that happened to be right there, right?
Okay.
So they probably had to work hard to find the obstacles that they do have. And some of them are fun. I'm not trying to talk them down or anything. But the green trails were basically dirt roads that kind of snaked around some trees and whatever, which were fun. And some of them were kind of scenic. We got to see this cool little, might have been a farmhouse or maybe somebody's like work shed or something that was all stonework and boarded up because it's not in use anymore. But that was somewhere on the property. We thought that was kind of a cool sight. And the blues, really the hardest part about them, there were one or two technical obstacles that they did have spotters out for to make sure people didn't get into trouble. But the hardest thing was probably the deep ruts that were in some of them. You had to really think about, like, am I going to clear that or not? And that's where that 33-inch tire thing came into play. If I went on the black trail and I encountered some of those ruts, it wouldn't matter what my skill was. If I couldn't get out of the ruts, I'd be stuck, right? And then that holds the whole park up. Everybody's now stuck waiting for me to get through that thing. So that's why they have these strict rules.
Right.
And like I said, people come to this thing, you don't know what kind of skill level that driver has. You could argue that it's similar to the Jeep Jamboree, but even there, it's like you talk to your trail guide. The trail guide tries to feel out the driver, and they try to help recommend trails. Well, at Bantam, it's just moving too quick. They can't really do that for everybody because there's so many Jeeps. And you line up for a trail, you're waiting for like 10 minutes maybe, and then they shoot you out with a trail guide. and then off you go, and you come back and you get in line for another one, and they shoot you out with a trail guide, right?
Oh my
And they
gosh,
just have trail guides rotating in and out. As soon as they
right.
come back from one, they hop into another one and take you out. So it's really just like there's no time to spare in the middle. So I can understand why they do it the way that they do it. We did have fun. There was like 6 trails there. 5 of them were rated green or blue. So we did all of those between the 2 days. We did 2 of them on Saturday, and then the other 3 we did Sunday. Let me think. Anything else I wanted to talk about for Saturday? Oh yeah, there was one other thing, but we did all those, and then they have a swap meet there as well, right? Which basically,
those are cool. Yeah,
it wasn't as big as last year's. Last year I thought there were a lot more vendors there. This year I saw like 3 or 4 vendors. Last year I thought it felt like there were more, but last year I bought my half doors that I have on the LJ now. This year, I had a crazy idea a couple weeks ago. In fact, I mentioned it on our last show that I had this crazy idea. And I was going to talk about it after I got back from Bantam because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to find the thing I wanted at Bantam. I was pretty sure, but I didn't know what they were going to charge for it. And if it was going to be too expensive, I wasn't going to try. I bought 2 YJ grills. You might wonder, why do I need 2? Well, one of them...
2.
What's the other one for? Yeah.
Yeah.
One of them, my wife had an idea, and I've seen these done before. She wants to make a bench with a Jeep grill as the
yep.
back.
Yep.
So I'm like, well, if we're going to do that, it's going to be a YJ grill because it's me.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to get a JK grill and do this. It's going to be a YJ. So we got the cheapest one we could find for that because I'm going to like cut all the tabs and brackets off of it, and then it's going to go onto a bench, right? So it just needs to have the shape, right? But then I bought another one that was in actually decent condition because I want to swap it onto the LJ.
You're going to have a Frankenstein Jeep.
I'm going to have a Franken Jeep, and everyone's going to hate it except me.
And that's okay.
And that's okay because it's mine, and I want it to look like that. For anyone who doesn't know, I mean, the YJ has a special place for me because, one, that's the Jeep that was all over the streets when I was a young man looking at vehicles, right? And 2, it's the first Jeep I ever owned. I owned 2 YJs before I ever had anything with coil springs under it. And for all the people that hate YJs because they're so yuppified, it's a freaking CJ with square headlights. Shut up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think people have started to come to like the YJ now.
I did some research on doing this same swap before I bought anything for it because I'm like, if this is going to be a ridiculous endeavor, then I mean, it is a ridiculous endeavor. But if it's going to be ridiculously expensive or difficult, then I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to live with the Jeep the way it is. And the number of posts that I found on various message forums where someone's like, I really want to do this. And then they just got tore to pieces over why would you want to do that? All you're going to do is lower the resale value of your Jeep. Oh, they're so ugly. Why would you want square headlights? The YJ was a terrible Jeep. I'm like, why?
People always have to be negative Nellies.
Yeah, that's what it is. And most of them responded with, because it's my Jeep and I want to.
Right.
And so, that's all that matters.
Shut up.
That's all that matters.
So real quick, as you're talking about the YJ grill, something I think maybe we should invest in is buying JK grills. Because
the ones that people took off for the angry eyes.
Yes, because let's say they get like these angry eye Jeepers, like, oh, I'm tired of my Jeep, I'm going to sell it. And so I'm like, oh, this Jeep only has 20,000 miles on it, and it's a mall crawler.
But these angry eyes.
Right. And I'm like, this would be a great Jeep for me to build now and to take off road again. But these angry eyes, and you're stuck with them. Because what did those people do with those grills?
They threw them away.
And you can't, it's not like you can call up Jeep, hey, can I get a grill?
I need a grill.
Nobody makes aftermarket grills that are normal.
The bright side is if you can find a shop or a small place like I did where I got the YJ grill from, they'll have a bunch of the JK grills because a lot of people will take them and sell them to places like this.
Right.
And I have a guy.
Look for.
Yeah, I have a guy that's relatively local here who I've been going to for the past 30 years. Whenever I need like, a used part or something that's hard to find or something that I know he might have pulled off a Jeep, He basically does just that. He'll buy Jeeps, he'll part them out, and he'll keep all the parts and sell them when people need them. So, and that's exactly the sort of person that I got this grill from, except they were ridiculously cheap because they were out there at Bantam. I paid $65 for both.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I wanted to get a hood too, because the grill, the corners of the grill on the YJ grill are a little more boxed than the TJ grill. So I'm going to need a hood to match that, I think. So I was going to get a hood too, but they're like, we didn't bring any hoods out here because that's silly. They're so big and we have no idea that anyone's going to buy them.
Right.
So he gave me his card. He's like, call us up at our shop. They're based in Scranton, which is like an hour from me. But then I have the other guy that's more local. He may have retired by now. If he did, then I can't call him. So at least I have a backup plan. So, but yeah, I think people are going to hate it, but I'm going to like it. So
who cares?
Video says that'll be different. I don't know if that's
yes.
a compliment or not. Square headlights on an LJ. Yeah, exactly what I'm going to do. I mean, I have the tattoo.
Oh.
Like the tattoo has square headlights too. So I can't be driving around a TJ forever, right? It's got to be. Oh, he says good, different. Good. It's good. All right, we're running out of time, and I still have a day to go through. Luckily, the last day was the shortest, and I already covered the trails part of it. So we finished the trails up on day 3, and then we did the playground. Now, the playground is pretty cool. It's basically, and this is permanent, right? So the place that hosts Bantam has let them build this thing on their property, and it's there all year round, right? I don't know if it's open all year round and people use it or not. But for the event, they have lanes set up. There's like 5 lanes, I think, of varying difficulties. One of them is just like this fun little course where you like drive over a log bridge and you go up over a dirt mound and you go like around a cool little, like, not quite rocky. It's like flat rocks that have been laid down so that you can drive on them and kind of give you the feel for it. It's great for the newbies to like just sort of get a feel for what it's like to like off-road and probably get bitten by the bug.
Right, exactly.
There's like tires you can drive over, that kind of thing. And then they have one that's for 33 inches and higher tires, which is like they took a bunch of those the Jersey barriers, the barriers they put on like the highway.
On the highway, yeah.
And they put them like vertical, like along each other, like railroad tracks almost, and then buried them up to the point where they're just like this bumpy thing. And then there's some big tractor tires you have to drive over without high centering and stuff like that. This year they added a big Jeep-sized teeter-totter. One of these where you have to drive on it and try to balance it.
Oh.
That was fun. I almost had it. I probably went an inch too far, and because it was like really slowly tipping, and the guy's like, they have a spotter there to try to help it. He's like, just a little further. And I went probably a fraction of an inch too far. And boom,
that would be kind of cool. What a great idea.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've seen them before, but I've never had a chance to do one. But I did that. That was fun. They had a mud pit, but I'm not a mud guy.
Yeah.
There's some videos on their Facebook group of people going through the mud pit, and it is everything you expect it to be.
That's just too much to clean up, and it's just bad for your Jeep.
Yeah, I don't like it, but they loved it. These people, one guy, he had some kind of V8 powered YJ, and I was watching the video after the fact, and he's tearing through it, and he gets stuck, of course, and then he backs up, and he's just using all the horsepower he can to go backward, and then he goes forward again, and he's just creeping through the mud, just churning up mud, and that V8 is screaming, and it's really spectacular. And then he blows a radiator hose, and then it was just like smoke everywhere. But he's still like, I'm going to make
grand finale.
And he gets out. He finishes it with the broken radiator hose, and then, of course, shuts it off because he doesn't want to overheat the thing. But, yeah, it was pretty spectacular. So, and then as I'm in line for that teeter-totter, right, because there were like 3 Jeeps ahead of me, right, and I'm sitting there in line. I look over, and the one right next to the teeter-totter is their 35 and up trail. And it is actually challenging. There is a pile of rocks that it's probably 50 yards long of just like this rocky terrain. And I'm looking at it, and there's no one on it. And I'm looking at the guide who's sitting there, and I'm looking at it, and he sees me looking, and I go, "You look bored." And he goes, "Yeah, I kind of am." And I'm like,
Oh, did he let you go
Still,
on it?
I'm still looking. He goes, come on over here next, because he's looking at my Jeep and he's like, this guy's not going to come on the Jeep, on the rig, or on this trail. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, I'll come over there next. And he goes, no, your tires aren't big enough. I look at him and I go, yes, they are.
Did he let you?
He let me.
Oh.
I went up and around, because they have people at the top that are supposed to stop you from getting in. Well, they were busy talking to other people. So I snuck into the 35 line. And there's no line, right? So I just zip right down. And the guy's down there. I'm like, I told you I was coming. And he goes, are you sure you can do this? I'm like, I can do this. He goes, you have lockers? I go, I don't need them. And he's probably thinking that I'm like this guy with a huge inflated ego. And he's like, okay, well, we'll get you through. And sure enough, he lines me up and I walk right through it. My wife was on the bleachers watching, because they have bleachers at the bottom. And she's like, you walked through that easier than any rig I saw.
Of course.
I'm like, of course I did. It's what I do.
I know. Like Barney, was it
Barney
Rubble? Barney Rubble that we were on, or the BA trail, I think, at AOAA.
Yeah, BA is one of them. Barney Rubble's another one.
I'm like, God.
Yeah. This thing was on par with the blues at AOAA. But again, they have to try to classify this so that they're sure they're going to get people through without getting stuck and broken, because they don't want to deal with that.
Correct.
So, but yeah, that was kind of fun. The other thing I forgot to mention, they had the Metal Cloak CTI trailer there.
Those are kind of cool. Yeah.
You're familiar with that, right?
Yeah. Because each wheel goes on a different platform that moves all different.
The guy that usually runs it, in fact, he might be the only guy that runs it. I don't know. Corey with Metal Cloak. I think he's still with Metal Cloak. He does the CTI trailer, whether he's with them or not. The modern Jeeper, he calls himself. I'd met him years ago at a Jeep Jamboree, and he was in the trail I was in. And it was one of these days where we were just like, we spent a lot of time sitting on the trail. And since he was a vendor, he was all the way at the back of the pack in like a vendor Jeep, right? And I was tail gunning. So every time we'd stop, I would walk up and I'd chat with him for a little bit. And he remembered me. So I came up and there was no line for the CTI trailer, which is unheard of from what I understand.
Right. People love those things.
Apparently at Bantam, it's just not as popular as it is at other places. So if you hear the CTI trailer coming to Bantam, go to Bantam if you want to get on the CTI trailer, because there's no line, apparently. Corey said they were there a couple years ago, and it was the same deal. They were just like sitting around twiddling their thumbs all day. So anyway, we chatted for a little bit. We put the LJ on the CTI trailer. Excuse me. It scored a 580, which from what I understand is not spectacular. It's like middle of the road, but it doesn't have, I don't have a crazy built suspension under it yet. It's basically the stock short arm suspension, except I put on Clayton arms on it. So they're not the stock, pressed steel arms, and 2-inch lift kit or lift springs from Old Man Emu, and Bilstein shocks, right? So it's not crazy. I don't have like coilovers and long arms and whatever. So I guess it's respectable. I don't know. Somebody tell me if I'm whatever, it performs well. So
I was going to say your Jeep does just fine.
I don't really care what the score is, but I was curious, and I really wanted to find out, because when I put the new axles in, I am going to do long arms and I might do coilovers. Depends on where the budget lands when I get there. So it'll be fun to do it again afterward and see what I gained, So that should be interesting. Oh, Gray Matter just joined. He says he's sorry he's late. That's okay. I'm still chatting, so you're good.
Yeah. Nate's sharing us his trail report with Nate.
Yeah.
Which we're nearing the end, but thanks for joining us now, Gray Matter Jeep. We appreciate it. And Mickey G and videos, and today. Those are the folks that are chatting anyway.
Yep.
If you're listening right now, we record live on YouTube. If you subscribe to us, you will get notified, and you can go, and then you can chat in the chat room live with other folks and with Nate and myself.
Generally every other Monday.
Yes.
So if you want to try to schedule that, sometimes life gets in the way. But
yes, 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Pacific.
Gray Matter says he'll listen to the podcast after work.
Yes.
Cool. Or later at work. Okay. I guess he works in the evenings. Sorry to hear that, man. Like night shifts. But hopefully we can help keep you awake.
Yep. There you go.
All right. So yeah, that's generally the trip to Bantam. I
So
mentioned
now you go to Jeep Jamboree a lot too. Is that up in Butler too? Is that where they hold the Jeep Jamboree when
the one that I go to is actually at AOAA.
Oh, but
That's the Coal Mountain Jamboree. They don't have a jamboree up here in at
oh,
Butler, as far as I know.
okay.
There used to be two in Pennsylvania, but now I think it's just one.
Because
No,
I remember Penny going around this time. I thought she was going to Jamboree to do trail guiding. So maybe because
the Coal Mountain event used to be twice a year, and we would have one in late May, and we would have another one in late summer.
okay.
After the pandemic, they cut that back down to just the late summer one
Hmm.
until numbers come back or whatever, right? So maybe that's what you remember. Because late May is
Okay.
close to when Bantam was.
Okay.
Bantam's early June usually.
And Bantam, this festival has been going on for a really long time,
Now
correct?
she may have volunteered at Bantam. There was a point
Right.
where I think Off Road Consulting was doing a lot of stuff around Bantam,
Okay.
and she may have been there with him. I'm not sure. I've never talked to her about it, but yeah, it was a fun event. I thought it was fun. Um,
Does it cost a lot of money? Like, let's say someone's thinking about, hey, maybe I'll try that next year.
you know,
Is
I
it
I bought the tickets in like January,
uh-huh.
February, so it's hard to remember. It was a couple $100
Okay.
for four people, two kids, two adults, one Jeep. I think the price went up if you bring another Jeep. Like it's not like one adult per Jeep is the price. I think there's a Jeep cost and then there's a wristband for each person cost. So like there's the registration and then there's driver, passenger, kids, all additional wristbands. And then like I said before, whatever events you want to do, there's events we didn't pay for that we could have gone and we could have bought and went and
Oh, so
did.
there were other things you could do?
And there's also apparently some offsite trails at the Kildew Rock Quarry,
Uh-huh.
which I think I had access to, but I didn't figure out. Like we didn't take the time to figure out where they were and stuff. Um, I ran into an old friend of mine who used to wheel with me back in the early 2000s when we were doing the Jeepaholics Anonymous runs, and he was off to go do that, and I didn't get a chance to check with him like, where is that? Do I have access to that? Can I get there? Right. So that was maybe something we'll try next time. And they have a Trail Fest event that they do in September, I think,
Mhm.
which I don't know if it's at the same quarry or if it's a whole other section of land, but they do have a whole separate section of land that's just for trails that they run. I think it's in September. So there's a lot of stuff to do. Pretty cool event.
Very cool. And lots of history. Definitely
Yeah,
lots of history with
yeah, yeah.
the
They
start
have
of Jeeps.
they have like the usual little museum style things where you can sit down and watch a video about the history and stuff. We haven't taken the time to sit down and do that because we're like reading the signs and looking at all the Jeeps, and you can only keep the kids entertained for so long, right? So,
Right. For sure.
yeah, I guess the only other thing I wanted to talk about was the tow rig, the Cadillac. Um, I'm starting to get iffy about its transmission, and that worries me.
Oh.
On the way out, we were coming out of a rest area, and it did this thing where it like bucked while it was shifting, and I thought, well, that was weird. And then it did it again once on the way home, and it's done it once with no trailer on it since I've gotten home, and I'm
Uh-oh.
like, this can't be good. So
Well,
my
keep
little
her.
experiment of can I take a 15-year-old Cadillac Escalade and use it as a reliable tow rig? It has not gone well. I'm just going to say that
Yeah.
like I like the vehicle when it's working right. It does tow really well. Like it's got plenty of power with that 6.2. It could be reliable if I think it had fewer miles on it. It's like 130,000 miles, 120 something I think thousand miles. And I did some reading. They say that the transmission that is behind the 6.2 is usually the 6L80, and people are saying they usually get about 150,000 on them. Ew. So I'm getting close to that.
Yeah.
So it's really got me worried, and we're thinking about, like, in the fall, if we can get it through to the fall, we're going to maybe look at trading it in on something, as long as the transmission doesn't explode before then.
Right. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. There's a local transmission shop that I used when I got the rebuilt transmission for the LJ a couple years ago. I was going to call him up and see if he can, like, just have a look at it and tell me if he thinks it's, like, about to explode, or if I can probably baby it and get some more time out of it. But yeah, so I'm a little down about that, but whatever. It's been a good vehicle to, like, introduce me to the world of towing. Now I kind of have a better idea of what it is that I maybe might change about the next purchase, right? So we'll see how it all goes. So yeah, if anybody has any transmission advice, let me know. Because I'm not looking forward. I don't want to replace the transmission, because I'm sure that's not going to be cheap. It's a heavy duty thing in there. I'm sure it ain't going to be an inexpensive replacement.
No,
and I'm certainly not going to do it at home like I did in the LJ.
No, oh yeah,
that's probably one heavy transmission.
Oh, I can't even imagine. Can't even imagine.
I mean, the Caddy doesn't even fit in my garage, and I mean the pickup wouldn't either. It's not like it's just because of the Caddy. It's just the height restraints on the entry into my garage. It won't go in there. So there's no way I'm going to do it at home, because I'd be doing it in the street, and I think the police would have a thing to say about that.
Yep.
Why is there a vehicle with no transmission here in your parking spot in front of your house? So, but yeah, I guess
should we skip the news and we'll save that for next time?
15 minutes past.
Yeah.
But
yeah, offroadinsiders.com and
yeah. I hope you guys
Instagram,
have enjoyed
Facebook, yep.
My story of this year's Bantam Jeep Heritage Festival.
It kind of gives you an idea of what's going on during
that was kind of my point.
Yeah.
The first year I went, I had no idea what to expect. I had looked it up. I looked at their website. I'm like, what actually goes on here? And now that I've been there a few times, I have a better feel for it. So that's kind of why I want to share.
So next week, or next episode, if everything goes as planned, I will do my own trip report.
There you go.
605 Jeeps Rock Fest in the Black Hills National Forest, right?
Sounds like a fun time. Right?
Yeah, in South Dakota. It's a TNT custom sponsored event. I will be riding with the big boys doing my job. It's more, I'm going to be working, getting video, and yeah. So if all goes well, we're shutting our shop down, and it's going to be a family event. All the techs are going, and Bob and Mary are letting us all take 2 days off, working days, and we're all going to be heading out there. Manufacturing's still going to be producing parts, but the auto repair custom build part, we will be out there. So I will fill y'all in.
I'd imagine you have control over scheduling for that, so that shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Correct.
But yeah, your parts manufacturing, if that was down for 2 days, you get all kinds of backups and orders, right?
Yeah. And it'll be interesting because the folks who have been wheeling out there, and they wheel all over the country, they say that's some of the toughest wheeling in the country. So
Black Hills, huh?
Yeah, out by Mount Rushmore. So we'll have to, I've been on all different trails, not so much in the South, but I'll have to give you my take on it. So
I think maybe once the kids are older, I got to start making trips out to places further away. And once I get a nice, reliable tow rig, that's also important. But
yeah, because you definitely.
I'm just taking mental notes of all the places that I really want to wheel.
Yeah,
and don't have the time really to do it now. Now it's really annoying, because when I was younger, didn't have kids, I didn't have the money to do this stuff. And now it's like, well, yeah, if I plan, I have the money to do this stuff. But now I don't have the time.
No, I get it. I never, ever would have been able to do the things I did if I hadn't lost my job, I hadn't gotten a divorce, bad things had to happen for me to get to some good things. So it all works out in the end. So
Black
we'll
Hills has 9 and 10 rated
rated
trails.
trails. Yeah.
So this will be after I get the 60s in the
Yeah.
and I guess.
Right. Yeah, but shoot, the way you wheel, you could do those on your 33s.
I don't know. It's got its
Yeah.
limits. It's got its
Yeah.
limits. I've done a couple black trails at AOAA, but none of the crazy ones. Usually
Right.
like the lower end of the black spectrum at AOAA I've been able to get through. And even then it's like, well, I can do this down but not up, right? Or I can do it on
Yeah.
this route but not that one.
Right.
So,
All
yeah,
right.
the LJ's got its limits. It is a good little Jeep. I'll say that. It does a good job.
I
And
always said the little Jeep that could.
with the right experience behind the wheel, you can definitely, and like I was saying earlier, it's not crazy. It still has mostly stock drivetrain. There's no lockers in it. Still got the rear 44 and front 30. They're not trussed. They're not locked.
Mhm.
It's just you got to use your brain
Yeah.
when you wheel it. That's all there is to it.
Yep.
You got to think about your lines instead of just point and shoot like you see on YouTube. All right. So anyway, thanks folks for listening. If you want to listen to us live, like Tammy was saying, every other Monday, check out the Off-Road Insiders YouTube channel. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Go to offroadinsiders.com for pretty much wherever you want to find us. And with that, I think we're about done.
Yeah. You all have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Yep. Everybody have a great couple of weeks.